We would like to thank the Greek ambassador to the USA, Mrs. Alexandra Papadopoulou, for this really warm message. I was really glad to see her back in Washington in October, and hopefully we will meet again in person soon. Now, it is my pleasure to present the next message. The head of the main opposition party, Mr. Tsipras. It is with great pleasure that I address once again the annual conference, the annual summit of your chamber, although for the second year in a row, given the limitations according to the health-related protocols, I have to communicate with you remotely. This year, the title for your conference is really interesting, Redefining a Growth Strategy for an Inclusive and Sustainable Future. And I think it's of critical importance to discuss about how we redefine growth, because growth is more than numbers. We have to revisit its qualitative features, especially if we aim at having a sustainable future for all with no exclusions. We are living in an era in which the consecutive financial crisis plus the pandemics have brought on the surface the weaknesses of the prevailing financial and economic model till yesterday. So currently established beliefs and certainties are challenged. In the past 4 decades, these last 4 decades have been characterized by an unprecedented expansion of inequalities, and as a result, the trust of citizens to democratic values and to democratic regimes has been challenged, and as a result, populists and the far-right movements took advantage of that, exploiting the perceptions and the expectations of low-income social strata. Those of you who do not understand the need to change course, then he is just putting his head in the sand. If our future is an inclusive and sustainable future, and we aspire to that, then we have to consider inclusive and sustainable targets and objectives instead of merely following up to the failures one after the other of global markets. And it is of great importance that such initiatives taken by progressive forces, which we have been supported for many years and for which we have been criticized, this moment, these policies are on the table. Recent agreement, the OECD agreement for the global minimum corporate tax of 15%, and taxing profits of digital giants based on the taxation of the country where the value is created and not the headquarters, has been a very positive step forward. Some years ago, this could have been considered as unimaginable, but a very important step is also the establishment of the EU Green Agenda and the Fair Transition Fund, and the establishment of the RRF using European Union leverage. However, these positive steps are quite small considering the needs that our era generates. For instance, the pandemic itself, more than $12 billion have been invested by governments, and rightly so, on 6 different pharmaceuticals in order to strengthen their efforts to support science into manufacturing COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccine was a present, a gift by science to humanity. However, private organizations wanted to keep them as their own asset, safeguarding their patents. So they wanted to turn the wealth of humanity and of life into something that belongs to them. And as a result, while in the Western world we're having our third jab, in Africa, no more than 7% of our population has had their first. And this greediness is having its revenge right now. We have variants, continuous variants of the virus, showing that we will never be safe. We will never and nowhere be safe unless everyone is safe. That's why we need a brand new understanding of global governance and a brand new relationship between the private and the public sector on the basis of meeting a commonly accepted social goal, on the basis of securing that vaccines will be available to all. Therefore, we have to socialize benefits and not just the risks. Second example, climate crisis. We are already too late to move forward with our transition to a climate neutral environment, a future, so that we are able to protect our very home, the planet where these generations, the future ones, will live. However, increase of energy prices was a reminder that this climate transition, this environmental transition, comes with a cost. So the main question of our times is who's going to pay for this cost? Climate and digital transition might lead us to even more extensive inequalities unless they are governed by social and fair policies. On the contrary, using technology, we may produce energy using this energy to the benefit of wider social strata. So this debate is a global debate, is a global discussion, and I think it's quite telling that President Biden has taken quite progressive stance towards that. However, the Greek government, talking about Greece, is far by an active member of this effort, of this discussion for a paradigm shift. They're just reiterating old policies, old strategies that quite recently led us to bankruptcy. They are implementing the so-called trickle-down economics, which from Japan to the US have been rebuked blatantly, without any intention to change our productive model as it stands, without focusing on domestically produced added value, without industrial policy, without any belief to the productive capabilities of SMEs, and by undermining the value of labor, non-stop of labor. So if someone envisions a low-cost economy, then what he will get will be an economy of low expectations, and citizens will live in uncertainty. Government propaganda in Greece talk about a galloping economy. The only thing that's really galloping in Greece is prices, inequalities, and uncertainty experienced by the overwhelming majority of our citizens. The facts and the figures, despite the 21 rebound of our economy following the deep dive of the previous year, allow for no complacency and a feeling of joy, because by the end of this year we will be 3 billion euros less in terms of the Greek GDP compared to the 2019 one, because the pandemics allowed these twin deficits of the Greek economy to resurface: the fiscal deficit and the accounts deficit, which as a result froze all results achieved because of a fiscal adjustment in the past, because the increase of prices reduced the real income by 7.4% in October and 10.6% in November, because the impact of FDIs, were reduced by 15% approximately after the very significant recovery in the 2015-2019 period. So the choices of this government lead Greek economy into a duality. We have very few, very powerful ones to benefit of that, and the overwhelming majority of the people are getting no benefits out of this recovery. So this duality is what undermines the prospects of an inclusive and sustainable growth. Allow me, at this very point, given my experience of the time when I was at the helm of the Greek economy in critical times. Let me say that the problem of this country, both before the crisis and now, has not been fiscal mainly. It has been growth-related one. For many, many decades, we have had an introvert model in place, relying on developing certain traditional economy sectors and on the fake belief that big projects, consumerism and consumption and private investments will secure influx of foreign funds into our economy and thus are enough to support growth. Currently, by repeating the same failed experiment, by using the same failed recipe, I think it's irrational for anyone to expect any different results. However, Greece has had and still has many capabilities and great potential. In order to tap into them, we need structural changes. We need a new productive model that will aim at sustainable growth, GDP growth, and as a result to high added value services and products that will have environmental and social footprint. A model that will be based on the value of human capital, and mainly the highly qualified youngster of our country. A model that will aim at creating domestically produced added value, underpin Greek production, while supporting at the same time many Greek startups, especially in the sector, in the area of new technologies. A model that will support important sectoral policies, for instance, industrial policy with a regional dimension. So, a model that will aim at increasing productive investments, at increasing the flow of funds, Greek and foreign ones, and by lifting long-standing and obsolete thinking on behalf of the state, lift of bureaucracy, a clear urban planning system, clear taxation, etc. So, in this overall framework, my dear friends, I'd like to close by saying the following. We fully support, we encourage investments coming from the US, some of which have most likely been mentioned today during the works of your conference. We encourage the activities of the AmCham and other related initiatives taken. Let me remind you that the Syriza government was the one which greatly contributed to this direction by establishing the strategic dialogue, also in the context of our bilateral relations in December 2018. And of course, with the exceptionally successful participation of the US in the TIF 2018. The USA was the honored country in the Thessaloniki International Fair. And of course, the further development of US-Greece relationships in various sectors, energy, infrastructures, etc. We can and we should rely on this paradigm. We should and we can materialize more productive investments in Greece that will create well-paid jobs, new jobs, tapping into the main competitive advantage we have, our human capital. At the same time, we can and we should move forward with the paradigm shift by investing on a future of sustainable and inclusive growth. Thank you very, very much.